Well, welcome to this session on collaborative budgeting and shared governance using Questica solutions. Thank you to the Academic Resources Conference for this opportunity to share information. I'm Chris Olson with Questica. I'm a senior account executive focused on higher education. I'll let the other two panelists introduce themselves. So, Patrick, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, thank you, Chris. My name is Patrick Arona, a budget analyst reporting specialist in the budget office at Humboldt State University. In addition to supporting budget planning across the university, I do work closely with Questica team to maintain and develop solutions within the software and have been doing so for over 2 years now.
All right, and Chris Skolka.
Hi, my name is Chris Golka. I am a project manager and consultant at Questica, and I've been working in particular with the CSU campuses to implement Questica budget and to help them optimize their processes moving forward with the system.
All right, great. Well, next we'll introduce HSU and Questica, and then I'll provide an overview of the Questica budget software. And then Patrick's going to discuss how HSU collaboratively develops their budget and monitors the performance and health of budgets throughout the year, and how they share budget information with internal and external stakeholders. Chris Golka is going to share different approaches that others use, and then we'll wrap up with key takeaways. So I'm going to turn this back over to Patrick.
Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with HSU, we are located about 275 miles north of San Francisco. We are the most northern university within the CSU system. We're known for our nature surroundings, including the ancient redwood forest and beautiful coastline. Humboldt was originally founded as a teacher college back in 1913, but has since morphed over the years into what is now Humboldt State University. We have a total enrollment of 6,344 students, 501 faculty members. We have 52 majors and 72 minors. Our natural resource and science programs are nationally known and take advantage of our surroundings, providing a unique hands-on learning opportunity. And not to be forgotten is our visual and performing arts, which is also popular areas of study. So if you would like to know more about Humboldt State University, you can always visit our website at humboldt.edu.
All right, thanks, Patrick. What a beautiful campus. Well, Questica began working with HSU 6 years ago. Subsequently, the CSU Chancellor's Office issued an RFP and then executed a master service agreement with Questica that's been used by individual campuses to implement Questica's software. Questica focuses exclusively on budgeting and planning and transparency solutions for the public sector. Questica Budget as a software is a browser-based, cloud-based software that allows academic budget and planning managers and the central office to work together to develop, maintain, and monitor budgets. It reduces manual processes and multiple sources of information and process flows like spreadsheets and emails. It establishes a single source of truth. It does not replace your campus's accounting system. In fact, Questica will integrate with PeopleSoft. For example, Questica will import actual expenses from your accounting system so you can compare budget to actuals during the year and export the final budget to PeopleSoft, recognizing that's your system of record. Questica also includes the ability to attach supporting documents and narratives to budget line items to reduce unnecessary back and forth between departments and the budget office. And it includes features to compare and create multiple scenarios and the ability to share information with stakeholders, even if they're not Questica users. Questica Budget also includes workflow to streamline and codify collaboration by ensuring that approvers are notified when budgets are waiting for their approval and securing the necessary approvals for the given type of budget or amendment that might be in play. What you see in front of you is HSU's workflow, but each campus can configure the workflow so that it fits their environment. Typically, the central budget office uses Questica to prepare what might be called the base budget, which is often based on last year's budget and actuals and uses position and employee information from PeopleSoft. Budget managers might use Questica to make across-the-board changes in bulk or line-by-line changes or position allocation changes. And you'll be able to reference historical, actual, and budget data to inform your decisions. Throughout the year, budget managers can use tools and data such as up-to-date actuals and encumbrances to monitor the performance of the budget. And if needed, budget managers may request changes which are subject to an approval process that might differ from the original process. So now Patrick's going to give us a more detailed look at Humboldt State's budget process.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Here at HSU, we like to develop the budget for the upcoming year in two phases. First, we encourage budget analysts to review and submit personnel changes for the upcoming year. And second, to review and adjust the operating budget, or in other words, all budget not related to positions. Within the personnel module, budget analysts and administrators can view their area's budgeted positions and request updates for the upcoming year based on their internal plans. The Central Budget Office then reviews, processes, and ultimately publishes the updates to the overall budget, also referred to as the budgets or forecast grid, within the operating module, which houses the budget line item detail. So within the operating module and budgets grid, end users collaborate with leadership and department chairs to establish their base budget and review and update the budget in real time. Once base budget is posted on a going forward basis, revisions can be entered via change requests, also commonly referred to as budget transfers, directly in Questica, allowing for a more streamlined process. So, and lastly, before I showcase Humboldt's instance of Questica, within the operating modules, users can complete financial reviews, which I will touch on a little bit later in the presentation.
So here's a look inside Humboldt's instance of Questica, and on the left-hand side, different modules and tools users can take advantage of. What I would like to show today is a fund department, which Questica refers to as a cost center, which is simply a record that holds all activity related to that fund department combination. So to start, I'll pull up our theater, film, and dance department. So as you can see, the left panel allows users to navigate through general, budget, actuals, positions, and other information related to this fund department. But for today, I want to focus on budget details, which is where users can actually prepare budget at the beginning of the year, as well as positions where users can pull up more information related to specific positions. Let's start with positions. Now, what I love about this view is at a glance, you can see all base budgeted positions, whether or not they're budgeted to a program code, their allocation percentage, and their allocation FTE. But if you wanted to get more detailed information, all you would have to do is right-click and then click on Open Position, and a new tab will pop up. So starting with general position information, you could begin to see the employee that currently fills that position. This one happens to be vacant. What college this position is budgeted in, which is the College of Arts and Humanities and Social Sciences. You're able to see what account the base wage is budgeted to, job function, staff, the union code, exempt and non-exempt. So just a lot of good information right here at your fingertips. Now, under annual costing, you're going to be able to see the costing breakdown, where right here you have your base wage for 2020, as well as the different benefits associated with this position. If you right-click, then click on selected columns, you could also bring in account information, so you're able to see exactly where this position's budgeted wage and benefits are budgeted to. So that's really helpful. And then, as you can imagine, the monthly costing does a breakdown by month, then you're also able to bring in those accounts here as well. And under fund department, if this position was allocated to multiple fund departments, you'd be able to see that breakdown right here. However, for this particular position, you could see that this was budgeted 100% to the theater, film, and dance department. So under documents, users can attach, PDF files, Excel files, Word documents, and the like. But what I really like about this feature is that you don't lose the documents when you PNBY, prepare next year budget, and a new position record is created. It keeps track of those attachments, and you could start to track how the position has evolved over time. Now, along those same lines, if you come up here to position, then open year, you can pull up this position's record for each year since it's been created, as you can see right here. And a feature I need to start using more of because it's really cool is under reports, when you click on position wage details, a new tab will pop up already filtered based on the position or tab that you were previously on. All you would need to do is select the year, hit run report, and then a report pops up with a breakdown of the budget by month that you could easily export to a PDF or Excel and send it off to an administrator or whoever's requesting this information. So now that you have an overview of positions, let's go ahead and jump over to our budget details grid. So let's first talk about functionality within this grid, and it really reminds me of an Excel spreadsheet where on these column headers you can right click and see all your different options. If you wanted to freeze columns starting with account, that means that these columns would stay put when you scroll over to the right and try to view information off to the right side of the screen. Let me unfreeze that. You could sort by ascending, descending order, use the filter bar, and filter based on certain criteria that you enter. Now, an option I find myself using a lot is this group by option. So if you're looking at the top left, you could see that my data or my grid is grouped by account type, which is my revenue and expenses, then by account. But I could easily change this, where if I wanted to look at the information grouped by program, I could do so. And now you see that it's grouped by information or data that has no program, then by startup costs and college MSF fee, and so forth. And you could expand and collapse as well. And then you scroll over to the right, you can see subtotals for each program too. Now, this grid is currently broken out by month, but if I wanted it more consolidated or condensed, I could switch over to an annual view. And now when you scroll over to the right, we have it by year rather than by month. Now for those Excel lovers who wanted to do some ad hoc analysis, you could come to the top left, click on Export. It'll kick out an Excel spreadsheet. And you could play around with this information in Excel. Now I won't cover this in this session, but there is functionality where you can make edits directly on an export and import them back in, which has been very useful for us here at HSU. So in switching gears to actually preparing the budget, what I'd first want to speak to is our forecast type column, in which each line is listed either as salary or operating. Salary meaning these lines were pushed over from the salary or personnel module and is tied directly to a budgeted position. And therefore, you're not able to edit these lines. Where operating is more tied to your operating expenses, as you might expect. To edit, all you'd have to do is right-click on a line item. From the drop-down list, update the account, program class, or project. You could enter in a document line description right here, if need be, and update the budgeted amount. And then just click outside of that line in order for it to save. And let me put that back. Entering new budget line items is just as easy. And you would do that by coming up to this blank white row where it says click here to add a new record, clicking within it, and making a selection for each of the required fields. But let's just say you finish preparing the budget and it's ready for the next level of review. And by the way, this is something that HSU hasn't rolled out yet, but we hope to do so within the near future. And that is leverage the workflow within the tool. So if this was ready to go, what we could do is come over to promote to the next level of your organization, which is for us department review. Then click OK. And you will see over here to the top right that the stage goes from prepared base budget to department review. And now that department administrator could come in and either promote it up further or demote it back down to you if there's any revisions that need to be made. So to kind of sum it all up, Questica has really helped us here at HSU connect multiple phases of the budget planning process. From budgeting for positions, which then get automatically pushed out to the budget's grid, then allowing for further refinements within operating expenses. And the next step for us would be to then roll out workflow to make the process more efficient and transparent.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for showing us HSU's use case. Chris Gulka has had the opportunity to help many campuses implement Questica Budget and establish or improve a collaborative budgeting process. So, Chris, what are some of the other approaches or features that other institutions use?
Okay, so thanks, Chris, for that quick summary here. I want to dive into a little bit more detail on some of the things that Patrick will have shown you. Particularly when it comes, in this case, to position costing. So what you're looking at here is a position screen that shows the costing for a particular position. And in this case, we can see the costs are broken up monthly for a total annual salary of $50,000 in this particular position. One of the new features that we have available is we have the ability now to use what we call position revisions. So that allows us to make changes. Let's say, for example, we know that a particular position is going to be going on, changing from full-time to part-time midway through the year. That can have a significant impact on your budget planning process. You want to be sure that you're capturing those changes as you're going through your budget revisions. So we have the now have the ability in our system to actually do that. So to do that, we would come here under our position revisions feature within Questica. And within the position revisions feature, I could come over here and click on add position revision. In this case, we happen to be in our 2016 year because we happen to be in a sample database. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually choose an effective date for this change. I'm going to say that we'd like this change to take place in January of 2016. And I'm going to say that this is a change from full-time to part-time for a position. And I could put a more detailed description in there if I'd like to as well. But next I'll come down here and click on changes. So this is where things get really interesting. On this screen, I can see all the fields that could be used to contribute to the costing of this position. And I have the ability to change those as of an effective date. So what I'm going to say here is as of January 2016, this position goes from a 1 FTE to a 0.5 FTE. And I'll go ahead and click on save there. And when I do, we can see that's now showing up here as a revision. And if I come back to that position's budget, I will now see that I have one set of costing from July through to December, and then another set of costing going forward. And as well, the associated costs that are driven by that. So things like employment insurance, workers' compensation, some real world examples would be the FICA costs that would go along with your positions. Those costs are also updated along with the position. So I think that's a really important feature that's really going to help to increase the accuracy of your position planning. Now, one of the other things that I often hear from clients when we're implementing Questica budget and implementing commercial off-the-shelf software in general is that you really like to avoid customizations to the product. And there's really good reasons for that. Customizations take you away from the standard product and can increase your cost going forward around maintenance for those additional features that you've added to the system. Questica takes that really seriously. And as such, we've inserted some features into the system that allow you to have your own configurable business rules. And the reason that's important, and the reason we kind of draw a distinction between customization and configuration is because these configurable business rules are built such that they will survive your upgrades, that they are out-of-the-box features, and they can support your business processes all at once without the risks that come along with a true customization. So let me give you an example of what that might look like. So I'm going to come back up here to the Position General tab. It's going to show me some general information about the position. So let's say I'm going to make up an arbitrary business rule here that Questica would not kind of support out of the box. In this case, we're going to say that any salaried position in Questica must have an employee attached to it. So if we look on the form here, we'll see that we have this cost position using field. That tells me whether I have a graded position or if this person happens to be on like a grade scale of some sort. And then down here, we have our employee field. So if I were, for example, to change my cost position using from grade or from salary to grade, we'll see that that employee field went away on us because we don't need that. So we were able to put some logic in the background to actually remove that. And I was able to do that in just a few seconds actually within Questica, and it is a completely configurable thing rather than a customization. So we're actually able to match that business role with that particular logic. So let's say I wanted to change that back to salary, and let's say I made a mistake here. I decided I wanted no employee attached to that position. Well, my business rule says that I must have an employee attached to any salaried position. When I go to save that, I'll go to my file menu here and choose save. We'll see if the system will throw up an error message for us. It says you must select an employee for a salaried position. And it shows me the validation rule. This is a validation rule that an end user or an administrative user more likely could set up in the system. Again, no customization required. And it's something that you can configure on your own. So we're really proud of these features, and we think it gives folks a lot of flexibility to kind of tailor the system to meet your business processes without the need for customization. So I'll pass it back to Chris at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris. It's great to hear best practices from across North America, particularly around positions and personnel. Now Patrick's going to discuss how HSU monitors budget health and performance throughout the year.
Yeah, thanks again, Chris. So as part of HSU's quarterly financial review across all the university areas, together with Questica, we developed a projection report and module specifically for the CSU campuses. This allows us to project current year-end balances based off of historical trends. And in addition, the report allows users to group information by account, organization, or fund structure to better monitor performance. Now, it also has the ability to drill into or zoom out at each level of the institution, highlighting possible pain points and promoting proactive planning. So now we all know past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And when this is the case, users can enter projection adjustments to account for activity not captured necessarily within the report projections to better reflect their financial position. So in addition, while building out the module, we noticed context was lacking, as numbers don't always tell the whole story. So what we did was build in text boxes to allow for a narrative to accompany the report. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the projection report and module.
This projection report you see now is really the driver behind our quarterly financial review here at HSU. And while it looks pretty daunting at first glance, I like to break it down into three parts. The first two we are all pretty familiar with, budget and actuals comparison. These first three columns are related to budget, where you have your original or base budget set at the beginning of the year. You have your adjusted budget or revisions made throughout the year in this column, and the sum of two, or your final budget. And when I say final budget, it's your budget through the date you've ran the projection report. I've ran the report through December, so this would be your final budget through Q2. The next three columns are related to actuals, where you have your actuals, encumbrances, year-to-date total or total through Q2, as well as your year-to-date balance and year-to-date percentage. Now the remaining columns is where projections come into play, with the first column projection being system calculated projection. And there's two different type of calculations working on behind the scenes, which is really cool. When we're looking at revenues, operating expenses, and financial aid, it's really looking at a 3-year trend in order to come up with a projected amount. But then when we're looking at salaries and benefits, it's taking the current month's actuals that have hit and then carrying those forward through the remainder of the year in order to come up with a projection. So there's two different things going on at the same time, but it really makes the actual projected amounts more accurate, resulting in less projection adjustments. Which brings us to our next column, projection adjustments. This allows end users to enter adjustments through the projection module, which I'll showcase in a bit, but you get to enter adjustments to the system calculated projections, ultimately arriving at your final projection, or in other words, your expected year-end actuals. And then the last two columns are just your projected balance or projected percentage, your actuals against your budget. Next, I want to showcase a few different ways you could run this report because it is quite flexible. I currently have the financials consolidated for all departments within our College of Natural Resources and Sciences. But if I needed to look at this on a department by department basis, what I could do is click on this white arrow over here to the left. Under the parameters, you could go to page break on, and you could select department. And now financials for each department are on individual pages. For a more consolidated view, we could look at this by org structure. So within the group by parameter, if we were to go to account type, division, MBU, department, program, you could select none for the page break on. Make sure that we select the appropriate fund. I'll go ahead and select our operating fund here at HSU. Then rerun the report. Now you can see the information is laid out within an org structure where we have our division, our MBU, College of Natural Resources and Science. Then you could drill down into each department's revenues and then be able to drill down into each department's expenses, which allows another lens in which you could view the financials that might bring forth things that you didn't see when looking at it through an account structure or a fund structure. The last piece of the puzzle is the projection module, where users can enter projection adjustments, which you see right here within the projection adjustments column, as well as enter additional context or a narrative to then be submitted to the university budget office. And how you would do that is within the operating, you could go click on projections. From here, you find your area's projection record. You can double click to open it up. I recommend users start with projection adjustments. As you can see here, this analyst has already entered the applicable chart field and how much they're adjusting the system calculated projection, with additional context over to the right in case they ever need to come back and remind themselves why an adjustment was made in the first place. It's also a really intuitive interface where there's drop downs provided, as well as the ability to filter through these simply by typing whether the ID or actual description of the chart field. So once this is complete, all these amounts automatically update on the projection report. The only thing you would need to do is just rerun the report. The last part of the process HSU has implemented is a financial review section for analysts to add context to the projection report balances. This section was configured by HSU with built-in Questica functionality. So because of this, we're able to update review questions and change the layout on the fly without having to contact Questica. In conclusion, through the use of the projection report and module, we now have a more structured and efficient financial review process shared across the university that continuously informs our planning efforts.
So thanks again, Patrick. Let's switch gears now and talk about OpenBook, which is Questica's product that allows universities to share budget and other data graphically to internal and external stakeholders, regardless of whether they're Questica users. The visualizations are published to public or private websites in a controlled fashion. OpenBook leverages budget data directly from Questica without needing to transfer or reformat the data. So I'm going to let Patrick tell us how HSU shares information.
Yeah, so before we jump into HSU's open book, I just want to speak to some of the benefits HSU has experienced as a result of using the platform. The public-facing dashboards has provided greater transparency and visibility to stakeholders and promoted a sense of shared governance here at HSU, which is really important. At the beginning of the year, once base budget is established, the open book dashboards are updated. And also in doing this, it has led to a reduced number of internal and external budget requests as well. So speaking from personal experience, when building out the dashboards, they're pretty simple and intuitive. So I'll go ahead right now and jump into open book and showcase some of our dashboards so we could see it in action.
What we're looking at now is HSU's open book homepage that has several public-facing dashboards that the budget office manages, including Graduation Initiative 2025 investments, all funds and operating fund revenue and expenditure budgets, and a budgeted surplus and deficit by entity. For this demo, I'll showcase our operating expenditure budget to give you an idea of the possibilities and some of the functionality within. So to start, there are different ways to group or explore by budgeted related information, just depending on the data set the dashboard is pulling from. At HSU, we've set up several different commonly requested explore bys, including spending by firms classification, which is also known as programs code, university spending by account structure and org structure. So to walk through one, what you would first want to do is just make sure you select the applicable year. We'll stick with 2020, 2021. And to the right, you'll see a bar chart by division. To see more detailed information, all you have to do is hover your cursor over a bar to see the actual value associated with it. And then if you wanted to drill down into the next layer of the organization, simply click on the bar and you'll pull up each MBU or area that's within academic affairs and see the budget associated with each and you could keep drilling down just as far down as the visual allows for. If you're looking for a percentage of total representation, you can switch over to a donut visual by clicking on the percentage tab. And it has the same drill in and drill out functionality. And just another way to see the information through a different lens. If you would like to do away with visuals altogether and you want something nice and clean that only shows the values, you can click on the Summary tab. And if you have multiple years of information, there's a history view allowing stakeholders to view budget trends over multiple years as seen here. I'm not going to demo how you create one, but behind the scenes, these visuals are pretty easy to set up. You can either point to an ad hoc view or database within Questica built by end users, or you can upload an Excel or CSV file. Once you create the Explore bys, the OpenBook software takes care of the rest for the most part. Overall, this has definitely been value added here at HSU. Oftentimes we get a request from stakeholders that can be answered by OpenBook, and we often direct them here. One is to share with them that this information is easily available, and two is just to provide a greater transparency across the university. So in conclusion, if you would like to explore some of our other dashboards, please visit hsu.openbook.questica.com.
All right, well, thanks again, Patrick. Chris Golka, a similar question as before. How do you see others using OpenBook?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's actually a really great question. I want to show a couple of examples here. The example that you're seeing on your screen right now is actually based on a set of data, not actually residing in Questica at the moment. This is a set of data that I'm currently working on with our friends in Northridge. We're working on a tuition revenue driver for them. And essentially what it's going to do is take past enrollment and try to determine what that means for future enrollment. So kind of the opposite of what Patrick was saying earlier, past performance not indicating future. We're going on the opposite model here. What we're trying to show here is what the future enrollment might be. We're just kind of taking the data set that kind of underlies that. And the point I want to make here is that external data sets, as well as data sets that might reside in Questica, can be brought in to the OpenBook tool. So what we're seeing here is if we look at our data, we are seeing a breakdown of the enrollment at Northridge by student residency. So we can see here we have 37,000 resident students and about 2,800 non-resident students. And if I were to click on the resident students, for example, that's going to drill down. Now it's going to show me the next level of detail. So now I can see my full-time versus part-time students. Again, 4,000 and 33,000. I can dive into even more detail. I can dive into my full-time students, and now I can see it broken down by undergraduate, graduate, doctorate, and so on. And you can have as many levels as you'd like. I can drill down all the way here down to my academic career level, or I can see it broken out by basically by class level. So the point I really wanted to make here is that this data set currently doesn't reside in Questica, but I was able to bring this data set into Questica, set up these breakdowns, and that whole process really takes about 5 minutes or so. And you can have a really great visualization like this and build it very, very quickly on any data set. Now you may say, yeah, there's lots of tools that can do that. What's Questica's differentiator there? Well, our long-term plan for this tuition data is that this tuition or the enrollment data in particular would reside in Questica as what we call statistical actuals and statistical budgets. That means that that linkage between the budgets and the actuals can be automatically maintained. The data can be downloaded automatically into Questica, and from there can automatically make its way out to the portal as well. So this visualization can be automatically kept up to date with very, very little effort on your part. So you can think of all kinds of wonderful data sets that you might be able to present in a really great graphical manner here for folks who might care about them. Another feature that I really like to show off here is what we call our capital visualization. So the example that you're looking at here is a city up in Canada, Burlington, just about half hour outside of Toronto. And they're making a really great use of this tool. What this tool is showing is it is showing all of the projects, all the capital projects that are currently budgeted for the city. So along the left-hand side here, we see a list of all the different projects. But within the main pane here, we also see the projects laid out on a map. So I could, for example, zoom in on the map if there's a particular area that I happen to be interested in. And this particular area here is of particular interest to me because Questica's office is located right around here. So as a concerned citizen, I can go in and highlight a particular area. It's going to show me here that there's construction happening on this road, and I can click on that to see more detail. And all of the data driving this resides in Questica. So this narrative that I have here, project number information, we do have the ability to insert some maps in here as well. And of course, Questica's core functionality, the budget. So if I look down in here, I can see that this road is being repaved. That's starting in 2025 and probably moving into 2026. This is a wonderful feature. I'm really excited to see if we can start getting some more traction with some of our universities. I can see some wonderful use cases in here for a tool like this. You can imagine zooming in to a picture of your campus with the individual buildings outlined, the individual areas of campus outlined, with the ability for folks to just click on those areas to get detail about what's happening on any particular part of campus and the different projects that are going on there. So this is a tool we're really excited about. We think it's a wonderful presentation to your end users, and it's something that we're really looking forward to using with the campuses going forward. So that's some of the advanced uses of OpenBook in a nutshell. So Chris, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's great information. Well, what we've hope you've taken away from this is that a university's budget is a shared resource to help govern the institution. So it really must be developed collaboratively. And fortunately, there are solutions built exactly for this, with processes that are connected at each level of the university to establish a shared vision to fulfill your mission. Leveraging a transparency tool like Humboldt State has done further helps you foster shared governance and meet your transparency goals. So now we're going to move into Q&A time. Some questions have come up. The first one is, how have you utilized this tool while you have been working remotely? So Patrick, I think that's a good question for you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Chris. I mean, I guess the awesome part is that as we transitioned to working remotely through the pandemic, I mean, there was no downtime because Questica is already web-based. So for the most part, it was just really just business as usual. As long as you had internet connection, you had access to Questica, which was great for us, and just getting back to working through the day-to-day things that we need to do.
Yeah, great, good point. Another question is, do you provide training or support on how to use this product at the beginning? So Patrick, do you want to talk about HSU's training approach?
Yeah, so at Humboldt State, the Central Budget Office provides yearly refreshers or yearly trainings on some of the modules. And then as we onboard new employees, we will offer one-on-one training as well. One of the things that we plan to do in the near future is just to create a library of video content where end users can go and just pull up a video that they could access and learn more about the module and interact with it, and learn specifically how HSU uses the tool versus how another campus might use the tool. So that's something that we're looking forward to in the future to continue to build out.
Yeah, great. Chris, would you elaborate on some options for training?
Sure. So we do offer both virtual training and in person, and I think we've done a little bit of both with the various campuses. Given the realities of 2020 and 2021, we've seen a large shift towards virtual training. It also has the benefit that these kinds of sessions can be easily recorded and then kind of disseminated later. As well, as you're working through your implementation, your project manager and implementer will work with you to help you understand the product, help you understand how to use the product and incorporate your unique processes into the configuration of the product.
Yeah, and we also do have Questica Help, which is online, and it does include video trainings as well. To Patrick's point, it is a general purpose as opposed to specific, but that's also available. So the next question is, how do we get started? So that's a very broad question. I'll take a crack at it. Questica would be pleased to provide more information to you or your central budget office so you can take a closer look. As mentioned, campuses can leverage the master service agreement with the CSU Chancellor's Office. And kind of the way we work is immediately after a kickoff call, we work together with our customers to develop a joint implementation plan with you that's very detailed. So any insights that you'd share with other campuses considering using or starting their implementation?
If you're considering to transition over to Questica, I think one thing to consider is just the evaluation of your data within PeopleSoft initially. Sorry, I'm trying to frame what's the best way to speak to this, and maybe Chris, you could jump into with implementation. Because I mean, there is a certain kind of structure that fits well in the Questica and what doesn't. For instance, having multiple funds across different business units. I mean, what's some of the things you would suggest, Chris?
Yes, I think some of the more important things that I always look at when starting an implementation are having a really good understanding of your budgeting process. You'd be surprised how many customers come to us and don't know their own process. So having a good understanding of that before you start is always a great idea, so that the discussions around some of the stuff you talked about, Patrick, understanding how funds work versus departments, that stuff's already kind of been determined and worked out. And if that's not something you work out in advance, then our team is prepared to kind of work through that with you as well.
Well, one question might be, how are you budgeting differently during the pandemic and as we see ourselves coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, to speak to kind of both of that versus what's on the horizon and how have we started budgeted differently as a result of the pandemic is one thing. At Humboldt, what we really want to start doing and utilizing Questica as a tool is start multi-year planning and using those forecast years a few years out. So we really have a good idea and direction where we're going as an institution, but at the same time, leveraging the tool in order to do that. So we still keep that visibility and transparency all within the system and also keep that workflow. So as we move together, we're all on the same page.
So here's another question. How do I budget for lectures within a college?
Yeah, so what we like to think of there is perhaps a pool of positions. And one way that we can do that is by creating a template position or a set of template positions. And that might represent the average costing, for example, for a lecturer. And then as needed, those positions can then be assigned to the appropriate fund or department as needed. And that's kind of the strategy that we would use. And what that allows us to do is the end user of the system doesn't have to worry about the cost of the position. They can choose from a predefined template and create a pool out of that by choosing the appropriate positions that have already been pre-made for them.
All right, great. So the next question is, who is responsible for calculating the budget for things like benefits and taxes? If that's me, how do I go about doing that? So Patrick, do you want to tell us how HSU does that? And then maybe Chris can give us some other ideas?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question because in speaking with other campuses, they budget for benefits differently. Some benefits are held centrally versus how we do at HSU. Benefits are budgeted and tied to a position. So what we do within Questica is what we call modifiers, and based off of their wage, a benefit amount is calculated off of that. So that's the approach we take at HSU. And Chris, I don't know, maybe you would like to speak how some of the other campuses do that.
Yeah, so I can speak about other clients in general. I kind of see two different approaches oftentimes taken with these benefits. In your current world, if you're not using budgeting software at the moment, oftentimes that can be a really difficult figure to calculate, right? I've seen everything from very advanced spreadsheets that do these benefit calculations and then feed into other systems and very complex webs, all the way down to certain organizations just say, I'm going to budget a flat 25% as my as my benefit amount per position. And Questica can actually kind of clone either of those approaches. And I've seen both of them, where the approach Patrick described, where we have each individual benefit enumerated and calculated out in detail. Questica can certainly support that. And that gets you really, really accurate budgeting. But I've also seen other organizations, University of Toronto is a great example, where they say, you know what, I'm not going to go to that level of detail. I'm only budgeting, I'm not doing payroll. So I'm going to budget 25%, or I'm going to budget just a flat percent. That varies based on the position type. We can accommodate either approach.
All right, good. So the next question is, do you have any insights that you'd share with other campuses who are considering using or are actually starting their implementation? So Crystal, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I guess some of the advice that I would give, and I may have given some of this advice earlier, is to really make sure you have a good understanding of your current budget processes. Now, on top of that as well, implementing a new system, as we all know, is oftentimes a really great opportunity to make changes to your existing process, to optimize them, to go through a bit of a business process improvement exercise. So those are some of the things I'd make sure that you consider before starting the implementation. And Patrick, I don't know if you have some detail to add on to that.
Yeah, so what I would recommend if your campus is interested on implementing Questica is there is a collection of campuses called Quest that currently use Questica, the software, and we create a set of best practices for onboarding certain campuses to make sure the transition is smooth, and just to make sure your kind of your data infrastructure is in line with what needs to be imported or set up within Questica.
Yeah, that's great. This next question kind of dovetails into that. We use Excel for budgeting. What typically motivates a campus to implement a budget solution? So maybe go ahead, Patrick. Why don't you give your thoughts on that?
There's several benefits to using a platform like Questica. Specifically for us, it creates a set of a database of truth that's all shared across campus that we could all access and view at any time. There's a sense of transparency there. It's shared broadly across campus. In addition to that, it creates a established set of workflows as well. On top of that too, you kind of have the flexibility to build on top of that. Like mentioned earlier within the presentation is the fact that we built out a whole projection module and report, which we utilize quarterly, that basically tracks the financial health of the institution. So that was a huge win for us, and that's something you can leverage going forward.
Yeah, great. And then Patrick, this last question is for you. What are your long-term goals? And then more near-term, how do you budget differently, or how did you budget differently during the pandemic? And now as we think we're starting to come out of the pandemic?
So one of our more immediate goals, which is something that we wanted to do before the pandemic, but now need to do now more than ever, is do more long-term budget planning, looking out multiple years, just so we can better understand where we're going as an institution, because that's become more important than ever. The more that we're on the same page and can at least plan for where we want to go. And then even if that doesn't end up being the case, to circle back and say, hey, this is where we deviated from the plan. This is where we needed to change. And being able to track that going forward is very important.
So the last question is, what support is available post-implementation? So Chris, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. So a couple things to kind of highlight here. We have a wonderful support team. So you do have access to call or email. We even have a web portal that you can use to contact our support team. A wonderful group of folks. Your implementation specialist or project manager will also kind of be working behind the scenes. So if there's a question that our support team can't immediately resolve, they got a whole bunch of other teams backing them up, including our development teams, your original project manager as well. But in addition to that, we also have what we call our customer success team. And their job is to kind of be your champion at Questica kind of going forward. They will keep your business needs in mind, try to understand your business processes, and make sure you're getting the most out of Questica. They'll be in touch with you to talk about new features that are coming down the pipe to see if you can take advantage of them. And they'll also make sure that you're informed of any webinars, sessions like this that may be available to you so that you can keep yourself informed, keep yourself up to date.
All right, thanks, Chris. Well, that's it. We'd welcome a chance, though, to answer more questions, so please reach out to us. Thanks to my fellow panelists, and thanks again to ARC for this opportunity.